we've got Paut Quankamp Streek and Els van Paut from the Netherlands. They are going to be talking about a project that they've been doing for 12 years now. Thank you so much for giving up your time today to come and talk to us about it.
Thank you for making me do this, John, because this has been a trajectory that I needed to write up. I should have done that years ago, so it was high time that I did it, and this request from you just made it happen, so that's great. It was a lot of fun to look back. I introduce you to Els. Els is the person I first got in touch with from this local council. You were the first to hire me, and you're still here, and I'm still here, so that's good. Okay, so what we had in mind was to give you a little bit of background information on this council, and we'll talk you through a timeline of the work that we've been doing so far and what we want to do after that. And we would like to share with you the one constant denominator that we use through the years and that we will even expand after this, because that might be of some interest. We'll tell you a bit about our best hopes for the outcome of the session. It would be great if you had some questions for us, some feedback on what you like, maybe even some ideas for the future. And you never know, we might end up with loads of questions ourselves, so that would be great. Could you introduce yourself, Els?
Well, I'm Els van Paut. Currently, I'm team manager of the team of policy officers in the Council of Barneveld, at the Department of the social domain, as we call it here. But 15 years ago, I was recruited as a policy officer in order to make the change which was caused by the implementation of this new act on social support, which we will be talking later on. But that eventually led to all this what we are talking about now. So
yeah, okay. Well, I'm Paut. Most of you already mentioned that we've met before, but for those who haven't, I have a background in healthcare and management, and at some point got bitten by the solution-focused virus, and I never let go. So from 2009, I've been doing that work from my own business, and well, here we are. So a little bit about Barneveld. Barneveld is the name of this council, and it consists of 9 villages, I think, in total. Yeah. With a population at the moment of well over 61,000, but that is growing fast, as you can see in the graph on the right. It's grown in 25 years from about 45 to the 61 now, and you have plans to expand to 85,000 by
2040.
By 2040. So that, yeah, you can imagine what a strain that is on the local government to get all that organized, and you're constantly hiring, aren't you?
Yes. Lack of people,
yeah, it's a big problem. It's a very agricultural community. It's located sort of in the center of the Netherlands, as you can see here. Very agricultural, a lot of pig and poultry farms. It's very well known for its poultry in the whole country, and it's part of what they call here the Food Valley region in very good Dutch. Yeah, we're anglicizing all the time. And that is a number of councils in the area working together on a lot of areas, and we've made use of that in this trajectory, haven't we? It's a very church-going community. Reformed Church is still very strong here, and that has an impact on the whole welfare system, hasn't it?
Lots of volunteers from churches.
Yeah.
Do their best.
Yeah, so you've always tried to involve them as well, which is brilliant. And some tidbits. It's one of the few cities in the Netherlands that still has a local newspaper that comes out 6 days a week. That's really something. Yeah.
Whatever happens.
Anything that happens will be in the paper. Tourism is another big business here, mainly on accommodation, campsites, housing estates. And the council at this moment has about 600 staff, doesn't it? Yeah. How many of those are in the social services department?
More than 125, I think.
125, and the rest is busy with planning with businesses, and we'll get to that later. Yeah, so that's good. Right, well, we tried to encapsulate what we've done in this timeline, and if you'd care to add some stuff. It started before we started this project. It's good to begin at the beginning, because in 2007, our national government decided that we needed a new outlook on our whole system of providing welfare and social services. Because already back in the day, they realized that our population was aging rapidly, so that the workforce would be smaller compared to that, and we needed to start thinking about a big systems change. What was very interesting about that law is that they said we need to move away from judging people's disabilities. What's wrong with you and what services will we provide to compensate for that? We need to move away from that. We need to start looking about how would you like to participate in your community, and what are you already able to organize for yourself, and how can we help with these last few things that might be difficult. That was very forward-looking, wasn't it?
Yeah, but also very new and difficult to implement.
Yeah. So you started a small project group here in the council, didn't you?
Yeah, that was when you came, I think. Well, yeah. Well, we really realized that we couldn't just tell people from now on you should take care of yourself. So the big question was how can we do that? And we were looking for a way to facilitate also the employees to be able to talk with people and emphasize what are the capabilities of people instead of the legal assessment as we used to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started a little group, and I met Paut somewhere in 2009.
2010, I think.
Yeah,
10. Yeah.
And you had a presentation on social, what's called solution focused work, or how do you call it? And well, I thought that's what we need.
In those years, I was active in a province in the southwest of the Netherlands where we implemented signs of safety. I don't know if that's a known concept. It's something from child protection, a very solution-focused approach to child protection. And it was John Wheeler in the UK, together with Vivian Hogg, who had taken that concept and kind of translated it into what they called signs of well-being. So it would be adaptable for many more fields, not just the field of child safety. And in the province I work in, we came across with that. We thought, this is a great idea, let's run with it. So I've been doing a lot of work with that. And my thoughts when this law was put in place, I thought this whole signs of well-being idea, the solution-focused thinking behind that, might just be an answer to the how question. How are we going to do this? I was invited by the Dutch Council Association to deliver talks throughout the country about this idea, how you might be able to use this in this law. So that's how we got in touch.
Yeah.
And then in 2011, you started a first pilot project.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the employees, as I told, the employees were used to do a legal assessment. When people came here with a question, with a problem, we said, okay, fill out this form and we see if you are entitled, if you have the right to get this or that. And the whole new law on social support or Social Support Act, I don't know what's the name, asked a different approach. It also introduced the kitchen table conversations, which were like a metaphor for sitting down with your residents and really listen to them, ask them the questions about what they wanted to achieve and how what they are able to do themselves with their network, things like that. And well, I said to the employees here, okay, we have to change, we have to make another approach. So we changed our working process into first talking with people, first sitting down with them at the kitchen table, and after that, perhaps, if necessary, a request for
some support.
Yeah, instead of the other way around. And but that was not enough. I realized we had to support the employees with a kind of, well, so I would say that conversational skills. And so that's when I met Paut and asked her can you?
Yeah. So we started with a 2-day training with a small group. There were only 6 of them, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because not everyone was very fond of the
idea.
Because nothing is easier than just measure the legal rights, and you don't have to think yourself. You don't have not everybody was.
I still think that was a very clever idea that you had to go with people who were really keen to go for this change because they wanted.
I sent a mail. Wants to be with me.
They were curious. They were ready to take on board what I could give them and transform it into something that would work for them. And that was really nice. So that was only a 2-day training about having a solution-focused conversation and taking notes in a certain way. And that is the constant in the timeline. Maybe this is an adaptation of the form that John Wheeler and Vivian Hogg at the time developed. We call it the 3-column form because that's the structure. It's nothing more complicated than that. It used to start with just the 3 columns. We added in later years, because that's been a development in solution focus, of course, the best hopes and desired outcome questions. So we added that to the form, so it's been adapted. But basically what we teach people is to take notes in these simple 3 columns. What questions do people have? What worries? Use a phrase there that appeals to people. But the left column is always about questions, worries, dilemmas, whatever applies to that situation. We always invite the workers to use the language that the clients come with, as long as it covers that. The middle could be something like, here we added success factors because we would like you to ask you about what do you see as success factors in this whole project. But often it says there what's working well. And then the right column, for now, we use suggestions, but that could be what needs to happen, actions that we're going to take, treatment plans could be in there. And in a coaching conversation these days, I invite people to put their signs of progress. Just talk about, well, we all know what we mean, I think. So it's adaptable. This is an adaptable form, which is exactly what John and Vivian meant to deliver at the time. And in this organization, all the different departments that use it will use different headings. They adapt it to their own needs. But there is was pretty insistent that they put the success factors or what's working well column in the middle. That's what John and Vivian at the time devised, and that is very, very powerful because that's what you look at first when you look at a sheet of paper, and it's the progress in the right column that comes from that. And then at some point you can forget about the worries or the questions there are. And what's nice about this, what your workers did at the time was they just brought a blank sheet of paper to the homes of the people that wanted their help. They literally sat at the kitchen table and they would draw the columns and just say, okay, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions and I'm going to take notes and I'm going to write it down in these 3 columns with these headings. And what always happens, that is fascinating, that people will start reading with you. And if you're careful and you use the language your clients use and you write that down, people will nod their heads and think, oh yeah, that's exactly, they will often say, that's really funny, isn't it? That's exactly what I mean. Well, it's not what they mean, it's literally what they said. That's a really interesting language distinction that happens. So we might like to invite you to take notes as we go along in these 3 columns. You might have questions, you might identify success factors, and you might have ideas for us. So if you're interested in trying that, you could try this out. So yeah, that's what we did in the pilot, didn't we?
Yeah.
So 2-day training, and they just went for it.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Because you had some fascinating results in the beginning.
Well, we came to the conclusion that people were more happy with the result of the conversation, the kitchen table conversation, even if they didn't get what they thought they wished. if you understand me. People come often to a governmental organization like us and say, we need this and that. And we used to say, okay, you can't have it, or you can because it's the law. But when we sat down and talked with them, and we came to the conclusion, okay, but this is what you really need behind all the claim. And we came to a solution, but not a solution what they thought it would be. People were even more satisfied with themselves, and it saved us a lot of appealing, because according to this law you can appeal if you don't agree with our decision, but until nowadays we hardly have any appeals. If that's the word in English, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it might work.
Yeah.
They're not shouting out what you mean.
Okay.
So
Okay.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that were two very
Mhm.
it saved us, so it saved also money, and that's also a factor here, because we didn't have to take time to and legal counseling for in order to handle these deals.
Another brilliant thing you did, I think, was with this pilot said, it doesn't need to lead to cost cutting. We're happy if we stay within the budget that we are already spending. This is a quality move.
Yeah.
It's not meant to cut costs. But the interesting effect was that you did cut costs in the end.
Yeah.
That was not the
It
outset.
was not the goal.
No, and that helped. So that was a pilot of only 5 months, I think.
Yeah, 6. We enlarged it a little bit, but yeah, after that, I made a suggestion to the city council to implement this way of working because of those results. And then we started training all the people within my team, who had to conduct the Social Support Act. But later on we said, no, if we are the only one working like this, it's not okay, so we need to train more people, and eventually we have trained all the employees who had to conduct those conversations within the entire social domain, which also consists of people who talk about debts with residents, the people, the income support, youth help, help. Yeah, is that a word? Yeah. So and even we made a deliberate solution to institutionalize. How do you say that? To borgen, to
Oh, good one. That's another jargon word, isn't it? To make sure that the whole idea was sustained within all your working processes. And
we said, well, it's not just a one-time thing. We need to be sure that Paut comes back every year, a few times, for new employees, but also for already existing employees to be able to talk about their experience and practice, and expand their knowledge about social focused working. And I think that's one of the success factors
that could very well be. Yeah, because what we added to all the training series was the possibility for them to get coaching. We had a few years where I did a lot of coaching on the job. It was really a lot of fun. I would talk to the people who would have a conversation with a client beforehand, saying, okay, what would you like me to focus on? What are you hoping to develop? And I would just sit there and listen, take notes again in that 3-column form. What did I see that worked, and what suggestions did I have? We would talk about that afterwards, and that gave people always gave them the confidence to keep trying it, to keep implementing.
But also in groups, when one team said, oh, we want to know how do we do this or that, and then they could ask you the question, and it was totally free within the range of
you give me a budget and say, do what you like.
And people could subscribe.
Do you remember that we had the big lists on your door?
very.
When I would be here and we had time slots and people could just write their name down.
Yeah.
5 times a day I would run up to your door and look, oh, who am I seeing now? Yeah, that was a lot of fun, yeah. So yeah, that was an expansion and I think that ran up until, well, to this day really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
But not even stop through Corona to the pandemic.
No.
pandemic.
We continue through the pandemic, yeah. What I also find interesting, and it's on the sheet somewhere, is that it's on the left what we did from 2012 to 2014.
The network part.
The network partners. That was a bold move that you made. Could you tell us how that came about?
Well, we realized that if we were, as the council, the only partner who addressed inhabitants or residents this way, now it would not be enough. So we offered all our social network partners the possibility to be trained in solution-focused working, just to expand the oil. What is the oil flag? To expand the way of thinking also as well.
Yeah.
Because it's really a different way of thinking and behaving, acting towards residents.
Yeah.
And there was a big response. Also, we have lots of churches, as Paut already mentioned, and lots of volunteers within those churches who also were very interested because they were working without boundaries, and it helped them also really get how do you say that?
Yeah. It was a big range of organizations. From
welfare organizations, churches, youth care organizations.
Lots of volunteer groups. Yeah. I found it a lot of fun doing that. And the interesting thing is the council would provide them with one training that you would pay for. But what happened was that they kept asking me and some colleagues back over the years because they got the virus and implemented it in their own organization. So that was a big bold move that you made. Yeah. And we did some other things to support the whole change with the group that I'm a part of, Vraagkracht. We organized a conference at some point where we invited a lot of these partners to talk about how they used solution focus and what their experiences were. That was a lovely day. In 2019, Barneveld was asked to organize the national conference. That's a big thing. Thousands of people come because that's the Dutch Council Association. Every council's there. And we presented what we did there as well, didn't we? Yeah, that was so lots of sidelines. And then the last couple of years, I think we're forgetting to mention that over that period of time, the council itself took on board solution focus as their core way of thinking.
The leading principle. Leading principle, is that a word in English? I don't know.
It is.
It is that, as a way of thinking, working, behaving, but the challenge is to expand it to also the people, the employees working in the physical domain.
So for years now, it's in every policy paper. It's in the local government vision papers. That solution focus is the way to go, and that you're implementing it. So what we've been working on since 2019, we started tentatively with people. Yeah, we call it. I don't know if Department of Infrastructure is the right word. That's everybody involved in housing planning, road building, maintenance, the lot. That's a big department, isn't it?
Yeah, the biggest.
Yeah, we did some pilot trainings with people from there as more and more laws are changing in this country to involving the public more and more. So that department at some point said, "Oh, we need to talk to people. This is scary," and they looked at your people, didn't they?
Yeah, and they had to make the same change in the way they behave towards residents.
And they realized that the social department already had made that change and knew what they were doing really well. So we started experimenting with that. And it's just been decided that we're going to expand the training to that whole department over the coming years and implementing a few other new laws where we have where you really have to consult the public about everything that you do as a council. And through all of that, we use that same 3-column form to this day. Like we said, we've adapted it to new insights in solution focus. So it's, I think that makes it interesting for people who have been with us since 2010, 2011.
Yeah, some of them are, yeah.
Because there's still new developments that they can take on board.
And also the supervision or the intervision.
Yeah, that's something that we've started this year, isn't it? I'm here now for 3 days where I have 9 groups where we have what we call intervision sessions with. It's a kind of peer group supervision without the supervision. I'm just the moderator to make sure that it runs in a solution focused way. And it's the people themselves that help each other with all kinds of work related questions. Any question, I always say, that starts with how can I, is a great question that we can put up for discussion. And you've made the decision, okay, let's mix people from different departments in those groups. That is wonderful. Even yesterday I had people who started shaking each other's hands because they never really met. And that, as you're talking, come to the conclusion, oh, you deal with the same kinds of problems, even if it's a totally different field. And it's very inspiring to get suggestions from somebody from a different line of work. They get to know what the other person does. It's a really nice side effect that they learn from each other. And yeah.
What a great story. I was just like, wow. Sorry, what I was going to suggest there was to break people out for 5 minutes and just get them to have a little chat about what was really interesting for them. Okay. So we got a few questions at a time there. So should we go back to the first one and then we'll carry on from there. So Jerry, you wanted to know about at the beginning how you had 6 people at the beginning, I recall, but how did you actually start to spread it? How did you make that work?
Those 6 were very enthusiastic about what they experienced, what their results were, and they were still working among the other employees in another team. They just were a pilot team for a certain amount of time in their week. So the other people would listen and would say, oh, that's what we would like to be a part of that. That's why we especially chose to start with the 6 people. I put literally in kind of an advertisement for, I want to do this project, who wants to be with me? And there were 6 people who wanted that, but the other 12 gradually say, oh, we are missing out on something because it seems a lot of fun. So now that's what actually happened.
You did do more than that because you traveled as a pack, going to these conferences and talking to people about how you could do that. So it was really a combined thing with this pilot group or a few of them, where you together explored how you could do that and what appealed to them. So it was really a matter of involving people in the whole process, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I think not because you are such a nice person, but meeting you and this solution-focused way of working was really a crucial pillar in the success, because that really gave the employees the tools they needed. The big question of how, because I could tell them, okay, we have to do it differently, but how? And then then this possibility came along. So
I think with the expansion, we saw the classic pattern where you have the front runners, which was the adapters. You have a big group that said, yeah, interesting, I'll come on board. And they quickly became more enthusiastic. There was 1 or 2 maybe sitting on the fence thinking, I don't know about this.
Some people also left.
Yeah, they did.
Or we made them leave at certain days. But they
So it was really the classical pattern that you could see. But, So does that answer your question, Suzanne and Jay?
It's nothing more to it.
And what a remark I made with you said that people said we have to do something different. So there has already something that they accepted that is, we had to do something different, right?
I told them that they had to do something. I was recruited by my then my former, how do you say that, boss, because they needed someone to make this change, and they thought that I was no one who could help people change. So when I first came here, I started, I'm not very solution focused, started asking questions. Is this the way you think it should be? And now, well, that were not very nice questions because everyone got mad at me. So gradually I changed my tone of voice, but I was recruited in that role specifically to make those people more literally to create more external, how do you say that?
Power, pressure.
Awareness for we call it thinking from the outside in.
Yeah, that's the phrase you used.
Yeah.
It comes back.
Yeah. So that was my assignment, if you know. So.
Yeah. And of course, it all started with this law change, and that came. We didn't go into that, but it was a change in funding as well. A lot of provisions were formally paid for and regulated by national or provincial government, and that was all downshifted to the local government. So it came with a bucket load of money and a big responsibility. So now all of a sudden the local legislators were, or the alderman and the mayor became responsible for this whole care system, which was absolutely new. So they needed people like Els to help them set up some kind of system of how do we do this. Yeah, it's been a big change, fundamental change. Yeah.
And every council struggled with how to implement this, and some still do.
Some still do. You also asked about how we helped people to work with this 3-column form, if I'm correct, Jay.
Yep.
Our intensity of training has shifted. We started out with 2-day trainings, where day 1 would be very basic solution-focused thinking. How is it different from what we used to do? What is thinking in a solution-focused way? And so yeah, that was day 1. And then in day 2, we would start practicing more with it, using the 3-column form at the same time. And just practice with somebody would bring a case, and we would take notes in those 3 columns to help them see, okay, this is a way you could do it. Practice it amongst themselves, and then just sent them out to do it. And they were brave, these 6. It's really interesting because some of them still work here. I saw some of them yesterday, and they were looking back at how they started out and thought, oh, we didn't do half bad. Yeah. They're still pretty proud of what they did back then. And they should be. They were really brave and just went for it. And came back with lovely stories about how they were invited at the kitchen table with tea and biscuits, and how happy people were with the conversation. You have a lot of reports in your evaluation of the pilot where the clients would say that they really felt listened to. And yeah,
that was the big difference. It sounds so easy, but it's the big difference that people really, residents really feel
heard,
they continuously listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should have been always like that, but it wasn't.
And what's been a very big change is that the notes that they took in that 3-column form, in the beginning they would take it back here to the office and type it out and send it to people, where these days people will just take a picture with their smartphone and will keep it that way. And they would not change one word. That was it. It was a recording of the conversation. So it was a collaboration with the client. You can ask questions like, what do you want me to write down? How should I put this? What word should I use? And that was really successful. And in the background, because there's a lot more work involved, you changed the whole
working process,
filing system, the work process, so that you could incorporate this this form as a as the basis for the formal application. So you really switched the system as well. Yeah.
Well, in the older days, the employees wrote reports with lots of Latin word for
Jargon.
disabilities, yes. No, nothing of that anymore. It's just what I have a pain in my back. Oh, that's what we write down.
Yeah.
For instance. Yeah.
So that was, at first it was those 2 days training, Sherry, and I noticed in the years after that, that as we went along and you started recruiting people based on their solution focused skills, and they were kind of infected by their colleagues very quickly, that every time that I had a group of new employees, and we would do that maybe twice a year, didn't we? Yeah. That at some point I noticed, I don't have to tell them all that much anymore. They come in already knowing this, feeling it. Yeah. So I think now we have half a day's training, don't we? Yeah.
Twice a year, I think.
So that's a big cost reduction as well. For new employees, we don't need to do 2 whole days, it's half a day. That's enough, and they can work with that. People themselves teach each other. Yeah. It's a culture change.
Yeah,
I think. It's a big culture change.
Have you got any actual numbers? What numbers do you have that say, actually, as well as the whole organization has been infected, you know, we can show this?
We have most of the numbers material from that first pilot where you really meticulously recorded what you did. So yeah, it was, you had in those 5-6 months, 230 conversations with new clients, where 25% did not lead to the actual application for for services. And in the 100 conversations that you had with already existing clients, so they were follow-up conversations.
They already experienced the old way of working. That was the difference.
That was the difference. Again, this was 22%. And do you have an idea of what it was before?
Oh, no, I don't, but the reason we wanted to know this was the fear of our city council, for instance, that when talking to clients, you would give them more than they asked for, instead of what actually
Same or less.
Yeah.
Maybe if you could go to the next slide, we have some comparison figures. Yeah, well, in the pilot, the 173 conversations led to 208 applications for some provision, some form of services. Before that, that was in 81% was granted, and it sounds as if that is a better result, but in fact it isn't. Could you say a little bit about that, Els?
If a conversation led to an application, it almost always is granted, because we know that it really is necessary to this support is really necessary.
So somehow that is a better result than the rejections, because then you would get appeals on the rejections, and it was a strung out process. So yeah, a lot less appeals, and that was very important, because on average you did spend more time per client, but interestingly that worked out in benefits or savings on the other end, because there were fewer applications for domestic help,
Sort of made a difference.
in the kind of applications that people, the kind of services that people were granted. So there was a lot of savings there. Taxi passes, that was a very interesting one, that went down as people had conversations about transport, the need for transport. When they had the solution focused conversation, I remember the stories quite clearly. It turned out that a lot more people said, well, it's much nicer when my neighbor drives me, or a family member. So, but that wasn't grudgingly that they said, oh, well, I'll organize it myself. No, it was the quality of the conversation that your people had with them that made them come to that conclusion. So in the end, you spent a lot less on taxi passes, which is a very interesting result.
And in those days, we the old Social Support Act only saw on the is that the way in Dutch we say that like that? On the physical disabilities, and now it's
Yeah.
even
Mhm.
more rewarding with also the mental problem. People with mental problems were also in the new law since 2015.
Yeah.
It's this is interesting, but not that interesting.
No,
I think.
the later results are even more spectacular. Yeah. And another big saving was that you needed a lot less medical advice.
Yeah.
And
True.
do you remember why they did not need that?
Because we, in conversation with the clients, we call them residents, we could really figure out what do people need, what is necessary. And in the old days we said, oh, we don't know, we call the doctor in to make sure that it's not necessary. If that was
to deny their and again then that would lead to an appeal, and that would be a problem. Okay,
so maybe attitude towards questions of residents.
Absolutely. And one last slide, that would be the next one. Again, it's more applications granted, but leading to fewer appeals, and that is a big cost-cutting thing. But the satisfaction of people who went through the process was a lot higher. And that translates itself into lower number of appeals. That was absolutely interesting.
Most
That
interesting.
fewer people decided in the end that they wanted the services because they came to the conclusion that they were already doing very well and they had their own support that would help them, or they discovered a way to
within the
expand.
community, the network or the social welfare organizations, which got a bigger role in this part.
So these are some of the figures that we could collate.
As I said a few moments ago, it's not only about the numbers, because we don't realize, or we do actually, how much already solution focused work is a part of our system now, and even our yearly assessment with all our employees we do in the 3-column way of what's working for you, what do you have any advice, things like that. So it's not only about numbers, it's also about quality of communication within our organization.
Thank you. We've got one extra question from Suzanne here in the chat, which is, did anything else in the organization change? Well, you've just given an example of that. Apart from interactions between frontline workers and clients, for example, larger scale processes, forms, interactions with leaders, structures, etc.
There's a few other things that I can think of. It's the way that projects are structured, much more about desired outcomes, and then a solution-focused way of doing research about what needs to be done.
And the team, which is my team now, the policy advisors, also use the solution-focused way of thinking in their when they meet. I would say that talk with bigger groups of residents who have an initiative, or there where clashes in interests are. They have bigger groups. So for instance, we need to build an asylum center for asylum seeker in Barneveld. That's rather a thing in our community. And then in the way we approach the inhabitants nearby the place where this should be built, we use the solution-focused way of getting, of asking them now, what do you need to be able to accept this center, the building?
And again, they use the 3-column form to report on that and make it visible. Other things like the way meetings are held, meetings are much more solution focused. Some of the teams now start with an opening question. I've introduced them to the Nancy Klein principle of starting with a positive opening question to a meeting. I always do that in trainings and in intervision as well. And it's really funny. They thought, oh, that's a good idea. We'll try this out in our meeting, and it's been a great success, hasn't it?
Yeah, but some people look rather strange when they come in. When we're complimenting our bonus friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's really trickling into many aspects of the organization. Yeah. A lot of that we haven't been pushing, which I find interesting.
Quite an organic way of. Is that
It's very organic.
Organic.
Yeah. People just get curious in trainings or in other consultations that they have, and then think for themselves like, oh, I could apply that here or there, and then it just happens, and we hear about it afterwards sometimes.
Or looking for the right moment to introduce it again somewhere, like now your new assignment is because we have an reorganization, organization development, and it fits in quite nice. So I take the opportunity to say, okay.
And I think that what you have in throughout the organization is people who really are advocates for this approach. And they move to key positions, they change positions, bring it to other departments. That's also quite important. Whenever I come across Luce, I'm sure that she will take it to another group. Everything.
Thank you. So, Suzanne, I hope that gave you some ideas. Wynne just had one final question.
Yes, a little bit context about it, because you managed to put a process of 12 years in one slide. That's amazing. But during these 12 years, you, Paut and Els, have made several choices in organizing trainings and having kitchen table conversations and so on. I was curious about what were, according to you two, the success factors in making these choices, because you mentioned it's an organic process. How did you capture these organic elements that worked well? How did you capture that, and how did you inspired your choices?
I think we would both answer that differently, wouldn't we?
Yes, go ahead. I will.
What I've always enjoyed is that I have never become part of this organization. I mean, everybody knows me. If I walk around here, it's, hey, you're back. I've never been part of the way you devise your processes. I have been able to maintain, and that's has a lot to do with the way you deal with this and the other team leaders, to stay in a questioning role. And that way help develop the thinking. I think that is a success factor. I have not become part of the system. I can still be, we're doing these intervention sessions now. I hear stories about how they're implementing things that are totally new to me. Never heard of them before. And so staying on the fence, as it were, in my role, for me, I think that has been a key factor.
Yeah, I think staying consequent in, but sometimes I have discussions with co-workers who say, well, social focus, there is more, there are more other methods, whatever. And of course there are, but this we choose for the leading principle, solution focus. So that's staying consequent, and throughout all those years, I think that's also a critical success.
Yeah.
Now you've demonstrated to all of us it's a great case study. So thank you very much indeed, and honestly, well done to both of you. What an amazing job you've done with that.